I record this testimony, not for glory, nor for absolution, but because the truth must be spoken, before the Dominion erases it, before history calcifies into lies. I am Vekrel, soldier of the Virak's Third Conquest Fleet, witness to the day we believed we had slain the last human in the galaxy, and the day I first realized how wrong we were. The vacuum outside my viewport still glows with the embers of humanity's final colony, a drifting graveyard of shattered habitats, pulverized defense rings, and the blackened crust of a once green world. The Dominion calls this victory. They assign it parades and medallions. They tell our spawnlings that humans were wild creatures, defiant to the end, but ultimately predictable. Break their worlds and the beasts die. Break their fleets and the beasts flee. Break their spirit and the beasts kneel. But even then, even as the smoke of their extinction curled through the void like the last breath of a dying god, I felt the first tug of unease. A whisper had begun spreading through the fleet. It came first from junior technicians, then officers, then entire engineering crews who swore upon their bloodstones that the scanners were wrong, glitching, looping, or reacting to something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Sensor ghosts, anomalous energy spikes, warships that flickered on long-range scans only to vanish an instant later. Our commanders dismissed it all with the arrogance of victors. Residual signatures, they said, reactor echoes from the bombardment. But every veteran on the scourge of Uranus knew the truth our leaders refused to speak. Humans had a talent for surviving what should have annihilated them. I remember standing on the observation deck, claws resting against the cold alloy railing, watching fragments of human structures tumble through space. Twisted spires, melted arcs of metal, the broken bones of a civilization. It should have inspired triumph. Instead, I felt hunted. Hours later, the call came from Deck 6's sensor bay, panicked, breathless, uncharacteristically emotional for a Dominion crew. I arrived with 2 officers just as the chief analyst replayed the anomaly on the holo display. A signal. Faint. Old. Human. A distress beacon. Still transmitting. The officer beside me scoffed. A malfunction. Nothing organic survived the orbital strike. The humans are extinct. But the analyst zoomed in, stabilizing the waveform. Its frequency matched human emergency codes cataloged decades earlier. Its power source registered as active, not sputtering, steady. My throat constricted. No one answered. No one could. We launched a retrieval drone under protest from command. The beacon drifted alone through the storm, a small metal cylinder etched with English lettering. Its outer shell was scorched, dented, and ancient, yet the interior still pulsed with warm light, as though it refused to die. When the drone latched onto it, the deck lights flickered, monitors around us dimmed, and then, through every speaker across the bay, a sound emerged. A heartbeat. Human, slow, steady, deliberate. It should have been impossible. No human biology could survive here, nor interface with Dominion systems. Yet the heartbeat synced perfectly with our internal frequencies, as if, somehow, it had been waiting for us. A cold weight settled in my chest. The others felt it too. Warriors who had never known fear stared at the beacon as though it might spring open and devour us whole. Someone barked. But we couldn't. Every attempt to disable the signal failed. The beacon seemed aware, adjusting its pulse to bypass our encryption. And beneath the heartbeat, another sound emerged, too faint to decipher, yet unmistakably human. A voice, fragmented, buried in static, but alive in a way no recording should be. A survivor? No, it was worse than that. It was a warning.
The deck doors hissed open, and High Commander Tor Vaughn stormed inside. His posture radiated the fury of someone who feared humiliation more than death. He demanded the signal be terminated. He demanded the beacon be jettisoned. He demanded silence. But nothing silenced the heartbeat. Not until the lights cut out entirely. Darkness swallowed the bay for 6 long seconds. 6 eternal, airless seconds, where every Varax warrior wondered whether we were alone in that room. When the lights flickered back, the heartbeat was gone. The beacon's pulse had died. Relief washed over the crew, until the analyst pointed at the central holotable with trembling claws. "Coordinates," I whispered. "Coordinates deep within a forbidden region of space, one we believed barren. A place where no ship, human or Dominion, should have been able to hide." The room fell silent. I realized then why fear, ancient, primal fear, was tightening its grip around my spine. We had spent generations warring against humans, studying them, destroying them. We believed their extinction meant safety. But this beacon, this impossible survivor drifting in the radiation storm, spoke a different truth. Humans do not die when you kill them. They evolve into whatever can kill you back. As the scourge of Uranus adjusted course toward the coordinates, a new dread swallowed me whole. If a single human beacon could survive the apocalypse we unleashed, what else had survived? What else was waiting for us in the dark? If the beacon was a whisper, the disappearances were a scream, one our commanders refused to hear. They insisted the lost patrols had drifted into ion storms or rogue gravity wells. They insisted nothing survived our purge of humanity. They insisted order remained intact. But order does not simply erase entire squadrons. No wreckage, no distress signals, no escape pods, no corpses drifting like frozen memorials. Just absence, clean and absolute, as if the void itself had learned hunger. When the Dominion dispatched an investigation fleet, I was assigned to the cruiser Varen's Blade. Rumor said the missing ships vanished near a region of space so empty it defied cosmology, a nebula with no star, no mass, no anchor, a void where light seemed reluctant to travel. As we approached, the stars behind us dimmed, swallowed by a haze that felt more like a memory than matter. The nebula stretched before us, an ocean of black mist, thick and soundless. Even our hull sensors registered it as null density, a reading that should have been impossible. But then the fog shifted. It moved, as though aware of our presence. Our scanners detected faint returns, metallic echoes arranged in geometric patterns. At first, the officer speculated it was a derelict outpost from the Korjun Empire. Their architecture favored labyrinthine designs. But the closer we drifted, the more clearly the structures emerged through the haze. Not Korjun, not Varax, not any known civilization. Sharp-edged platforms, enclosures half swallowed by darkness, towers fused into the nebula itself like petrified monoliths. Then the fog thinned, reluctantly unveiling the largest structure, a colossal ring-shaped installation floating silently, its surface scarred. And etched across one side, nearly invisible beneath centuries of erosion, letters appeared. Weathered, ancient, unmistakable. The deck fell silent. Human engineering, older than any human FTL signature we had cataloged, older than their rise. Older than the Dominion's first contact with their kind. "This cannot be right," an officer whispered. "Humans were primitive during this era." But the evidence glinted before us like a cosmic accusation. Something else was wrong too. A faint vibration rippled along our hull, as though the installation emitted a heartbeat, sluggish, dormant, waiting. Our ship's lights flickered. And then we saw them. Not emerging, revealing themselves, as if peeling away from the darkness itself. Silent, angular vessels of undeniable human design, yet nothing like the human ships we had battled. These lacked heat signatures, lacked life, lacked propulsion trails. They drifted like cadavers animated by purpose. Some were small and needle-like, meant for stealth. Others were massive, slab-sided juggernauts with armor far denser than any human alloy. Their hulls were matte black, drinking in light. Their formation was almost ceremonial, as though greeting old visitors or guarding a grave. Our communications officer stuttered over her console. No life signs aboard any vessel, no radiological signature. "And yet they move," our captain murmured. One of the phantom vessels rotated gracefully, aligning its prow with our cruiser, slowly, deliberately, like a predator testing the curiosity of its prey. The fog shifted again, and that was when they decloaked. A second fleet had been present the entire time, larger, closer, impossibly hidden. Their hulls shimmered as if woven from starlight and shadow. Along their surfaces, symbols glowed faintly, etched in languages our translators struggled to identify. Ancient Terran dialects, proto-script from pre-digital civilizations, marks humanity had abandoned thousands of years before they left their gravity well. Every soldier aboard felt the same involuntary reaction, a tightening of lungs, a spike in pulse, a cold crawl beneath the scales. Because these ships weren't newer human vessels. They were older, much older. Humans couldn't have built these, someone whispered, not then. But the nebula felt alive around them, as though it had been shaped by their hands, or as if these ships lived inside the dark, sustained by it. We attempted a hailing signal. No response. We tried scanning for power sources. Only the faintest hum, like dormant reactors dreaming. Then, without warning, every dormant symbol on the human ships pulsed once. Not with light, with recognition. Our consoles dimmed, our systems froze. And a voice, not spoken but transmitted through pure data, echoed across our bridge. One word. Human. Unmistakably human. My claws dug into the armrest, breath freezing in my throat. The ship itself seemed to tense. "These vessels," the captain breathed. A realization crashed through me like a collapse of gravity wells. Humans had not vanished. They had withdrawn into the places no sane species ventured. Into the seams of space, the blind spots of physics, the dark where dominion arrogance never bothered to look. They had burrowed into the void like a leviathan hiding in deep ocean trenches, not defeated, but preparing. And in front of us was not a forgotten outpost, not a graveyard, not derelicts, but a warning line, a perimeter, a boundary we were never meant to breach. The human ships shifted in eerie unison, their angular hulls pointing deeper into the nebula, toward a region our scanners could not penetrate. Something stirred there, something vast, awake and listening. Our captain swallowed hard. "Back us away," he whispered, slowly. "Do not—" The lights died. Every console went dark, and the shadows in the nebula thickened into shapes. The final thing we saw before emergency power collapsed was a silhouette, a massive structure deeper inside the void, larger than a moon, illuminated by veins of human script burning like dying stars. The phantoms did not strike immediately. They did not rush to annihilate. Instead, they heard us, a predator corralling prey into a narrow corridor of the nebula. Each cruiser, each dreadnought, nudged by unseen forces, shifted as though guided by hands we could not see. Escape vectors we plotted vanished before they could be enacted. Jump coordinates warped, deflected, rewritten by something intelligent, deliberate. Our fleet was trapped, not by brute force, but by strategy so alien it felt almost supernatural. Every maneuver we attempted was anticipated, every evasive course nullified. And through the labyrinthine clouds of ionized gas and magnetic eddies, a single communication channel was allowed to pierce our jamming fields. Static first, then a voice. Old, ragged, worn by war, yet precise, terrifyingly composed. This is Commander Arya Hale of the Terran Remnant. Silence followed her words like a weight settling on every deck. Commander Hale, supposedly dead, a casualty listed in the archives among the final defenders of Novaterra. Yet here she was, alive, commanding, and unbroken. Her tone carried the calm inevitability of someone who had stared into the abyss of our wrath and survived. Her fleet appeared in the distance, not an aggressive swarm, but a structured formation, vessels emerging from the nebulous shadows with uncanny precision. Each ship was sleek, angular, yet radiated the kind of raw technological maturity we had never expected from the remnants of humanity. Hale spoke again. "We did not retreat because you defeated us. We withdrew to rebuild, to unite knowledge long lost and combine it with what we have scavenged from the stars. We have learned, adapted, and waited." Her words were a warning, not a threat, but their weight pressed down upon us like gravity. We, the conquerors, the dominators, had been outpaced by a species we assumed we understood. High Command, predictably, ignored the implication. Orders were issued to fire. Salvos lit the void, plasma streaks slicing toward the human formation. And then it happened. Every projectile we launched stalled mid-course, shuddering as if encountering an invisible wall. Weapon systems hiccuped, guidance arrays glitched. Dreadnoughts, colossal symbols of Dominion might, were disabled. Not destroyed, but carefully rendered impotent with surgical precision. It was not malice that guided their counterattack. It was understanding. Every strike we attempted, every defensive maneuver, anticipated, neutralized, made obsolete. The humans were quieter than ever, smarter, faster. Their responses were calm, measured, and terrifyingly exact. Not chaotic like young species fighting for survival, but perfected. Every Dominion tactic we had cataloged, every historical weakness we assumed, had been studied and accounted for. I stood on the observation deck of the Varan's blade, clawed hands gripping the railing, heart thrumming with something I had not felt in centuries: fear, respect, awe. In that instant, I understood why every species that underestimated humans had eventually perished. Not because of strength alone, not because of numbers, but because, when cornered, humanity did not merely survive. They learned, adapted, and became something entirely new. Hale's voice echoed again through the calms, calm and deliberate. "You have pushed us to the edge. You have shown us the worst of yourselves. We have watched, we have waited, and we have grown." Our commanders hesitated, and that moment, the briefest hesitation, was enough for Hale's fleet to shift. Their ships moved like shadows with awareness, reorienting to flank, contain, and dominate without firing a single destructive shot. The human vessel seemed to anticipate every Dominion command before it could even be executed. A low murmur ran through the bridge crew. Some muttered prayers to the old gods of our species. Others simply stared, jaws tight, as the true nature of humanity revealed itself. And as I looked upon Hale, the living symbol of her people's resilience, a chilling thought rooted itself in my mind. We had believed we had ended them. We had believed we had rewritten their history in ashes. But humans, Commander Arya Hale foremost among them, had rewritten us. The nebula around us seemed to close in, the shadows thickening, and I realized that our next move might very well decide not only the fate of our fleet, but the fate of the Dominion itself. Humiliation is a weight no conqueror can bear, and the Dominion, proud, arrogant, unyielding, felt it crushing their collective chest. Our fleets, the largest assembled since the War of Ascension, surged from hidden staging points across Dominion space. Warships glimmered in formation, dreadnoughts bristling with weapons arrays capable of leveling planetary cores. The mandate was clear: eradicate the human remnants in one decisive strike. I had been reassigned to the command ship Imperial Judgment, a vessel whose hull vibrated with the arrogance of leadership. On its bridge, the captains and admirals exuded confidence, as if the universe itself had been catalogued and conquered. They scoffed at the idea that humans could match our numbers, our firepower, our ingenuity. They assumed, like all of us, that a species once cornered and nearly annihilated could only survive, never thrive. They were wrong. As we approached the nebula, our sensors began reporting gravitational anomalies, hundreds of them, scattered across the void. Initially dismissed as minor distortions, asteroid clusters, or the turbulence of unseen star remnants, the readings refused to behave like chance. The distortions aligned, forming geometric patterns that rippled across the dark, converging, moving, shifting like the gears of a machine. And then they emerged. Human warships, previously invisible, peeled out of subspace with the precision of a predator that had watched its prey for centuries. Some were sleek, almost elegant in their contours. Others were massive, brutal, slab-sided leviathans. All bore the same mark: unity.
Every vessel moved as though part of a single organism, guided by a collective intelligence that no Dominion codex could interpret. The first salvo of our retaliation flared, plasma arcs streaking toward the human formation. And then the impossible happened. The attack did not strike shields, weapons, or hulls. It struck navigation arrays, pinning dreadnoughts in place as if their cores were tethered by invisible chains. Entire squadrons froze mid-course, thrusters locked, systems cascading into emergency protocol failures. Our fleet, the pride of the Dominion, immobilized within seconds. Humans did not aim to win a conventional battle, they aimed to end a war. Commander Arya Hale's face appeared on every Dominion console simultaneously, her expression calm, unwavering, as if the vacuum itself bent around her presence. "Last warning," she said. Her voice carried the weight of inevitability, like a dying star burning through the dark. Our leaders hesitated, then refused to surrender. Pride outweighed reason. And that was when humanity unleashed what no Dominion weaponry had prepared us for. A storm unlike anything our historians could conceive. Raw gravitational energy, twisted and converted into light that tore through reality itself. Space warped around it, time itself shivered. Entire fleets were shaken as if the universe itself was bending to the human's will. We watched in horror as the human weapon reshaped the battlefield, immobilizing ships without destroying them, creating zones of displacement that made our vast armada helpless. Their assault was surgical, precise, and almost merciful, leaving bodies and vessels intact, but utterly useless. It was not brutality that defined humanity in that moment. It was desperation-driven innovation, a brilliance born from centuries of being hunted, cornered, and underestimated. On the bridge of the Imperial Judgment, I could feel the collective realization spreading, an icy, creeping terror. We were not dealing with children of a defeated species. We were facing a civilization that had evolved beyond expectation, beyond prediction, beyond the arrogance of the Dominion itself. And in that instant, I understood a truth older than conquest or empire. When humans fight, they do not merely resist, they transform. Every officer, every soldier, every dreadnought crew felt it in their cores. Humanity had surpassed us, not with overwhelming force, but with cunning born of survival. The nebula around the fleet shimmered with impossible light, human vessels appearing and disappearing in ways that made the vacuum itself seem alive. Time stretched, space folded, and the realization sank into my mind like a blade. This was not the beginning of a battle. This was the endgame. The battle that unfolded was unlike anything Dominion history had ever recorded. Doctrine crumbled, strategy manuals became irrelevant, and the laws of physics themselves seemed to bend under the weight of human ingenuity.
Ships blinked in and out of existence, slipping across localized curvature fields as if space were clay and they were sculptors. Plasma volleys vanished mid-flight, only to strike distant targets before we could even react. Our own vessels, engineered for dominance and destruction, felt like clumsy toys in their presence. Panic, a sensation I had long believed alien to the Dominion, spread through the ranks. Soldiers trained to ignore death, to thrive in chaos, began muttering prayers and gripping their consoles as if sheer will could anchor reality itself. Communication channels jammed with interference we could not trace, or worse, interference we did not understand. Orders were transmitted, then blocked, then rerouted by invisible forces. Escape corridors collapsed as if the very void conspired against us. And yet, amid the chaos, the humans did not act randomly. They did not merely react. They predicted. Every countermeasure we deployed was anticipated, every maneuver countered before it could be enacted. Retreats that should have offered salvation became traps. Ambushes we set dissolved before execution. It was as though the humans had studied the Dominion not as a species, but as a living system, dissecting our instincts, our strategies, our structural patterns. Then, amid the storm of blinking warships and fractured reality, Commander Arya Hale broadcast her message across all channels, calm and unwavering. "You have pushed us to the brink," she said, "and we have survived. We found ruins of a civilization older than either of our species. Its technology allows glimpses into near-future probability patterns. We have mastered them. We have adapted." Her words carried neither arrogance nor malice, only the inevitability of a species that had evolved beyond expectation. "Had you left us alone," she continued, voice measured as a distant heartbeat, "we would have stayed what we were." And then it became undeniable. Our fleet, the pride of the Dominion, began to fracture, not from destruction, but from comprehension. Ships remained intact, hulls unbreached, weapons undamaged, but we understood something the logs could never capture. We had unleashed an opponent we could no longer define. The humans fought not to survive, they fought to redefine themselves. They read our tactics like a map, anticipated every strike, and moved as if reality itself was responding to their will. I watched, frozen, as dreadnoughts twisted in impossible formations, corvettes slipped through gravitational folds like wraiths, and frigates disappeared entirely, only to reappear miles behind our lines. Our top strategists, seasoned veterans of countless campaigns, could only gape at screens, their pride disintegrating with each blink of a human vessel. And yet, Commander Hale's message returned, reverberating through the void, a final, chilling reminder. "Your war has ended. You forced us to evolve. We are no longer what you expected." The realization struck deeper than any weapon. The Dominion had not lost due to firepower or tactics or miscalculation. We had lost to the inevitability of adaptation. Humanity had become a force beyond prediction, a species that could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast every expectation we had ever held. By the time the nebula cleared, our fleet was shattered, not physically, but conceptually. The Virax had been taught a lesson in humility. And somewhere in the distance, in the shifting shadows of space, humans moved as one, silent and perfect, leaving the Dominion to stare into the echo of a war that should never have been fought, and a species that could never again be underestimated. The Dominion did not fall in fire, it fell in comprehension. After the battle that should have broken humanity, a different fracture ran through our empire, a fracture of confidence, of certainty, of fear. Entire sectors, once loyal and unwavering, began surrendering without a fight, offering their worlds, their fleets, their governance to human influence. Others rebelled openly, rioting against governors and high command, screaming that we had provoked a species that simply would not die. From the observation deck of the Imperial Judgment, I witnessed it all. Planetary governors broadcasting desperate pleas for negotiation. Citizens flooding streets, claws clenched in fear and fury. Posters of Dominion triumph were torn down. Once sacred monuments were defaced.
Soldiers muttered to one another about the futility of fighting a war that could not be won, their pride crumbling faster than any fleet we had lost. And through it all, humanity did not strike. They did not descend as conquerors, nor impose fleets to enforce obedience. Instead, they came as partners, envoys carrying words of reason, engineers bringing the tools to rebuild what we had destroyed, relief ships delivering aid to colonies we had flattened. In a universe accustomed to the cruelty of the powerful, mercy became a weapon the Dominion could not comprehend. Every bridge officer, every fleet commander felt the weight of it. Mercy, a force we had never mastered. It shattered us more completely than any siege, any bombardment, any tactical maneuver. Commander Arya Hale herself met the remnants of our leadership on neutral ground, an abandoned asteroidal outpost floating in silent orbit. She appeared not as a conqueror, but as a diplomat, calm and resolute. Her terms were deceptively simple. End the war, demilitarize the frontier, share knowledge freely. And then came the most astonishing declaration: let your people choose peace. The room went silent. No empire in memory had ever been offered such choice by a species they had tried to annihilate. Humans refused to rule, not because they lacked the ability, but because ruling had never been their aim. Survival had always been their goal. Evolution had always been their purpose. I watched as the Dominion began to bend, like a tree in a relentless wind. Ships returned to orbit without orders. Governors negotiated instead of deploying fleets. Citizens adapted to a new reality where humans were no longer the hunted, but teachers of survival and cooperation. And as envoys moved between worlds, repairing what our fleets had shattered, I understood that humanity's victory was not measured in destruction or conquest. It was measured in the impossible. They had broken the cycle of war, reshaped our understanding of power, and taught an empire humility. The Dominion, once a symbol of unstoppable dominance, now existed in uneasy transition. We would rebuild. We would reorganize. But we would never forget the lesson humanity had delivered. Mercy can be more terrifying than weapons, and evolution cannot be contained. The nebula that had hidden the Terran remnant for decades now seemed smaller, less imposing, as if it had fulfilled its purpose. Humans moved outward, not to conquer, but to restore, to teach, to ensure survival, not just of themselves, but of those who had once sought their extinction. And I, Vecrel, soldier and witness, understood the final truth. We had thought ourselves the hunters. We had thought we controlled the universe, but humans had rewritten the rules. Years have passed since the nebula became a crucible, since humanity reshaped the galaxy with a single, relentless will. I speak now not as a soldier, nor as a chronicler of victory, but as a witness to the transformation of two civilizations once locked in mutual hatred and fear. Humanity, the species we once believed broken and extinct, now stands as a beacon of resilience. Cities bloom across neutral space, architectural marvels stretching toward the stars, merging form and function in ways that make our densest urban centers seem primitive. Their fleets patrol trade routes, not as conquerors, not as executioners of empire, but as guardians of commerce and life. Even the terrifying predictive systems, the legacy of their evolution, are shared under strict ethical frameworks, ensuring that their foresight does not become oppression. The Dominion, once proud and unyielding, has learned humility. Our scholars now study alongside human engineers at academies built on former battlefields. Our children play with theirs on worlds once scarred by firestorms and bombardments, learning that the universe can be more than domination, that cooperation carries its own power.
Generations that would have been born in fear now grow with awe, witnessing firsthand what persistence, adaptation, and mercy can achieve. And Commander Arya Hale, the woman who shepherded humanity through extinction into a new era, oversees this delicate balance, not as a ruler, not as an emperor, but as a diplomat, a guide, a living testament to her species' endurance. Her presence is a constant reminder. Leadership is not about imposing will, it is about shaping possibility. We had thought ourselves victorious. We had thought we crushed humanity's worlds, burned their history, and extinguished their spark. Yet they rose from ashes with a fury that terrifies and inspires simultaneously. They did not merely survive, they adapted, evolved, and rebuilt. Every step they take across the stars is a declaration. Humanity does not end. Humanity cannot be stopped. This is not the story of a war won by the Dominion.
It is the story of our awakening, the day we understood the true measure of human danger. Not strength, not weapons, not sheer numbers, but their refusal to stay dead, their relentless drive to adapt, rise, and endure against all odds. I have witnessed it, I have chronicled it, and I can attest, the galaxy has changed forever. The humans we once hunted now define the future, not through conquest, but through survival, innovation, and mercy. And so, as the new dawn breaks over worlds once scarred by war, I record this truth. The most dangerous force in the galaxy is not the might of an army, nor the fury of a fleet. It is the human spirit, unyielding, indomitable, eternal.